we have to also see that what are the types of treaties. Type of treaties in the sense whether it is bilateral treaty, multilateral treaty, because there were certain conventions wherein number of parties could be there. Now there were different names for the treaties that we will see in the types of treaty. Declaration, such as declaration, conventions, covenant, agreement, protocol, etc. So what it consists of, that we will see while discussing the law of treaties in detail. But in that sense, we have to see what are the types of treaties, then who are the parties to the treaty, whether sovereign state are only parties to the treaty, or other than sovereign states can other subjects can enter into a treaties like multinational corporations, international organization, most importantly whether they can enter into a treaty with nations. So that's what we have to see, the parties to the treaty. So it is the nations, they can be a parties to the treaty. Then on behalf of nations, who can participate in the process of treaty making. So that aspect we have to see in the parties to the treaty. Latter, formation of a treaty. Now while studying treaty, you must recalled with the your law of contract, because the basic jurisprudence for treaty is principles of contract. So same principles will be applicable for the treaties like consent, etc. Vitiating elements of the contract which you studied, that were equally applicable with certain modifications to the treaty. So that aspects we have to study in formation of treaty. Then the most basic principle on which international law is developed, that we have to see here, that is significance or principle of pacta sunt servanda. Now it is a Latin term, pact. Pact means agreement, sunt means entered into, servanda by all. So pact sunt servanda, it means once treaty is entered into, it has to be respected by all the nations. So no one will differ from the treaties. So here we have to see the significance of the maxim pacta, pact sunt servanda. It means once agreement is entered into by a nation, agreement in the sense treaty, once treaty is entered into by the nation, that treaty has to be obeyed at all cost. So treaties must have to be respected. That is called as pacta sunt servanda. So the significance of this principle we have to see in the law of treaty, because it is the basis for development of international law. So treaties must be observed in simple words by the nations. Then another principle in relation with the treaty that we have to see is role of rebus sic stantibus. So here this is also a maxim. Now you are familiar with the maxim in law of tort, in law of crime, even in contract. You had gone through the number of maxims. So these maxims are equally available here also under international law. So another first maxim is pacta sunt servanda, means treaties entered into by the nations must have to be observed, must have to be respected. Second is, what is the principle of rebus sic stantibus? In simple language or in English, it means change of the circumstances. If the treaty is entered into by two nations, latter there were change into the circumstances, probably those circumstances on the basis of which treaty is entered into. And if those circumstances itself changed, what will be the impact of such change on the validity of treaty, whether treaty will comes to an end, whether it will go on, who has to compensate whom. These aspects are related to this principle that is called as rebus sic stantibus, that we will see what impact will cause by this principle on the, yes, relationship between India and China because of the changed circumstances, because of the allegations made against the China about the spreading of COVID-19, and as well as the disturbance by the army of China into the territory of Galwan and other issues. Now, whether the trade related treaties entered into by India and China, whether they will go on, the investments made by China into India, whether that will go on, and what kind of impact these changed circumstances will have on the treaties. So, correct, the example was cited by Professor Sharad Pawar. So, this aspect we have to study. Again, we have to study the procedure for termination of treaty. Once treaty is entered into, whether this treaty can be comes to an end, and what are the ways by which treaty comes to an end. Similarly, you see the discharge of contract in Indian Contract Act, when contract discharges or termination, when contract comes to an end, there were several modes of termination of contract, or discharge is one of the mode. So that way, when treaty will comes to an end, and what is the procedure for termination of treaty. So it is not the law that once treaty is entered into, that has to be observed by hook or crook by the nations. They may initiate the procedure for termination of treaties. So that procedure we have to see here in module 10. So now this module 10 is linked with module 2 because module 2 deals with the sources of international law, and one of the source is international treaties. So here elaborate law relating to treaties given in module 10. So now we will move towards the next module, that is module 11. Now this is also one of the important module under international law, that is settlement of international disputes. So it consists of legal and political dispute. So first we have to see what is the difference between legal and political dispute. Political dispute generally solved at the diplomatic levels, but the legal dispute went to the court. Probably International Court of Justice as well as certain arbitration courts were established by the United Nations, that we will see in the course of discussion, that what were the international forums established to settle the dispute between the nations. So first topic we have to study here, the legal and political disputes, then the means for settlement of this dispute. So dispute is international, of course, for settlement. So international law provides different means for settlement of international dispute. Yes, England wanted to terminate the Treaty of European Union, Brexit. The Britain want to exit from the European Union. So that also due to the changed circumstances that can be done. Even they initiate the process for termination of treaty. It is at the last point. So we are at the settlement of dispute. What are the means to settle the dispute between two nations? So broadly, there were two means of settlement of international dispute. One is peaceful, that has to be followed by all treaty. The mandate is given to the members of United Nations that they shall take recourse of the peaceful means for settlement of international dispute, and not to resort or another mean, that is coercive means or forceful means for settlement of disputes. So these peaceful means may extrajudicial as well as judicial means. Extrajudicial, out of court, judicial by approaching ICJ, International Court of Justice. So extrajudicial means covers negotiation. Now same, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act we have, that is also the product of international jurisprudence. The settlement of dispute must be done by way of arbitration, conciliation, etc. So these means are equally applicable at international level. Here also negotiations can be made between two nations, negotiation discussions to be made, and by discussions dispute can be solved. Then another way non-judicial peaceful means is good offices. Good offices means certain officers of repute were selected by the nations to discuss the dispute between two nations. So through them, the dispute can be settled. Now this is also codified aspect. These means were laid down by the Charter of United Nations. So we will see in the development of international law what is the Charter of United Nations. So Charter is a law establishing United Nations. संयुक्त संघटना प्रस्थापित करणारा कायदा. So United Nations Charter is a law by which United Nations is established. And there were several organs of the United Nations that we will see in module 12. So good offices, then mediation. A mediator is appointed and mediator try to convince the two nations. Now generally mediator can be appointed from third nation, non-disputing nations. That mediator will try to arrive the disputing parties at a peaceful conclusion. So he may put forth certain solutions for the settlement of dispute, and that solution can be agreed upon by the disputing states, and the dispute can be resolved. This process is called as a mediation. And also conciliation is also one another peaceful means. The details of these means and their differences we will see while observing the module. So conciliation is also a way of discussion, but there is difference between negotiation, conciliation, arbitration that we will see there. And one another mode is inquiry. Inquiry also made by establishing a commission even at domestic level. You have heard about the commission appointed for to inquire such and such incidents. Commission is appointed to inquire particular event, corruption, etc. So like on same line, even in international law, the process of commission is there. The commission go and study, make an inquiry and try to settle the dispute between two nations. So inquiry, and lastly arbitration. Here third person is appointed as arbitrator and he heard the case and give award. So award is nothing but the judgment passed by the arbitrator, and that award is binding, and no appeal is provided against the arbitration award even in domestic jurisprudence. In municipal level, even in India, we are having arbitration and conciliation act for deciding certain disputes. The people may approach to the arbitrator and get their dispute resolved even without going into the court, and this process has been conferred with the legal sanctity by arbitration and conciliation act. Older one of 1960, latter new was enacted in 1994. So these are the peaceful means which must have to be taken resort by the nations as per the mandate of United Nations Charter to settle their dispute, because one of the objective of the United Nations is to settle dispute among nations peacefully and to bring international peace and security within the world. That's what they have to settle their dispute through these peaceful means. Now, what dispute arises, how they were settled, that we will see there. Then the next segment of settlement of dispute is coercive means or compulsive. Here, coercive measures were adopted by one state against the another state. So another state come at me and cooperate with another nations. So what those means are? The first coercive and compulsion means is retorsion. So these words are new to you. Retorsions, reprisals, these two were Similar with little but bit difference. Rat origin is a way to behave in a similar way with the another nations. The answer of bullet is bullet. Goli ka jawab goli. If they commit the breach of ceasefire, we too. If they fired, we too. So take similar actions. Is a retortion, reprisal. So retortion can be resorted by the nations. So similar action is to be taken. That is retortion. Reprisals, more coercive action is to be taken against the state. Like surgical strikes, they were covered under reprisals. Then embargo, that is related to trade. Embargo means related to trade. Like the decision of government of India to ban Chinese app, 64, 65, something 59 mobile apps were banned. That is related to trade aspects. So embargo is related to trade aspects. To take coercive measures against another state relating to business activities, trade activities. Yes, Deepak Shinde, to stop doing business with another country, to stop investment, de-investment, make de-investment in respect to certain trades, etc. So these are the coercive means. That is called as embargo. Another one is Pacific blockade. So this blockade can be exercised in respect of trade, even in air traffic or in sea. The blockade can be created from passing through the territories of one state. So if the dispute is not resolved, then one state may take recourse to the Pacific blockade and block the way of the aircraft, ships, or vehicles, even by road, air, or sea. The blockades can be created, particularly in sea. The blockades were created until the dispute is resolved. And once dispute is resolved, the blockades were removed. So, to enable another party to come at conclusion or try to settle dispute or to accept the lawful demands of another nations, these blockades were created. Therefore, blockades is also one of the way to settle dispute coercively. And lastly, intervention. War was earlier the way, but it was removed after international humanitarian law. War cannot be the way to settle dispute. Even some books contain war as one of the coercive measures to settlement of dispute. But through war, disputes were never settled. But one nation comes to an end, or the loss is caused to one nation. So intervention can be made by international organizations or third state for settling the dispute. So intervention is also one of the way to settle the dispute. Here, third state intervene if the dispute is of international nature. That's what the some state refuse to interfere, particularly America, refused to interfere into the dispute between India and Jammu Kashmir, though appeal has been made into the Security Council by Pakistan that there must be intervention over this issue. But the other nation said it is their domestic issue and not an international issue to seek intervention from the third state. So that way, third state in the Security Council nowadays intervene and raise the dispute, and Security Council thereby pass recommendations for settlement of disputes. So these are the way: retortion, reprisal, embargo, Pacific blockade, and intervention. These are the five measures, coercive measures, through which international dispute between the nations can be settled down. Now we will move towards the last module, that is module 12, deals with the international institutions or even organizations. So here we have to see how this international institution emerged. What is the historical development right from Indian Postal Union, the first international organization, to the World Health Organizations or WTO, United Nations, etc. Several others, because today international law is developed because of the work or role played by international organizations. So first topic we have to see here in module 12, that is the historical origin of international institutions. Now take into account institutions and organizations are one of the same and they are subject of international law. They enjoy right and duties under international law. So how these international institutions were established prior to the First World War? Because the object of international institution is to prevent war, to save the upcoming generation from the scourge of war. With this motive, the international institutions were established. So to prevent world war directly, the international institutions came into wake. Yes, the first international institutions to prevent the world war established was the League of Nations. But whether League of Nations was succeed in preventing the world war? Yes, it was established in. The question is whether the establishment of League of Nations resulted into prevention of world war, because it was, yes, it did not. The world war first took place, then nations come Congress of Vienna. In Vienna, a congress was held, the nations came, they resolved the United Nations, sorry, League of Nations, and decided that henceforth there will not be a world war. So, with the objective to prevent world war, yes, America didn't participate earlier, later they joined. So, the question is whether they succeed in prevention of world war? No. Even after the establishment of League of Nations, they established other organ, even they established the court. The court established during the era of League of Nations is called as Permanent Court of International Justice, PCIJ. The Permanent Court of International Justice was established at Hague. Later that court succeeded. Same court succeeded into ICJ today. So at Hague, Permanent Court of International Justice was established by the League of Nations so that there could not be a world war. However, the World War II took place, and this World War II resulted into dissolution of the League of Nations. So League of Nations was dissolved, including Permanent Court of International Justice. And then the another organization institution emerged with the same objective, that to prevent world war or to save the succeeding generation from the scourge of war, that is United Nations Organization. In the year 1945, for that a charter was made, that is called as Charter of United Nations 1945. In other words, this charter, yes, 24th September 1945, the charter came into existence, and this charter unofficially called as a Constitution of International Law, because international law nowadays work on the basis of the provision of United Nations Charter. Now, this second institutions we have to see after in this module, that is United Nations. Then what are the purposes and principles of this United Nations? With what purpose? Like prevention of world war, to maintain international peace and security, to settle international dispute peacefully, to preserve human rights, etc. So with that we will see in detail what those purpose principles are, as well as structure, power and functions of the different organs. Like at municipal level, we have different organs, judiciary, executive, legislature. Similarly, United Nations also work through some organs. So we have to see what those organs are and what is their structure. Structure means compositions, how many member states could be there, what functions they can exercise, what are the powers conferred upon these institutions, sorry, these organs, etc. That we have to see here in this module. So organs are, you might have been aware about the organs of United Nations if you had come from political science. See, organs of United Nations, like organs of government of India, judiciary, executive, legislature. So organs of United Nations are, comment, chat box is waiting for you. Secretariat is a different and Security Council is one another, Secretariat one another. WHO is not the organ of United Nations. WHO is a separate organization. Security Council, सुरक्षा परिषद मराठीत तुम्ही पेपरमध्ये वाचला असेल, सुरक्षा परिषदेने हा निर्णय घेतला वगैरे. येस, इंटरनॅशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस is one organ of the United Nations. Security Council is another. But first organ which passes resolution, and that organ is treated as Parliament, General Assembly. Yes, Samuel Borde. The General Assembly, आमसभा मराठीत, संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघाच्या आमसभेने असा निर्णय घेतला. That is the resolution passed by General Assembly of United Nations. So General Assembly is treated equally. Yes, Economic and Social Council to deal with the economic, social right, like unite to develop United Nations Development Program, UNICEF. These all things are working under Economic and Social Council. Like directive principles of state policy, we have part 4th in the Constitution. United Nations having this organ, Economic and Social Council. Trusteeships councils to provide protection to certain territories, those who don't have their own government. See, in Afghanistan, if once Taliban was there, no government, the trusteeship council acquired the control over Afghanistan. Later, Afghanistan established their constitution. Yes, it is now not working. So, the organs of United Nations are General Assembly one, Security Council another, Economic and Social Council, Trusteeship Council on paper, Secretariat, where all process of documentation is going on, like submission of treaties, etc. We will see in treaties also what Secretariat has to function. Secretariat is nothing but the repository of documents, documentation, कागदपत्र सगळे जमा होणे वगैरे. That is Secretariat, giving notices, etc. Yes. So these organs we have to, their power functions, we have to see in international institutions. Other international institutions we don't have in detail, like WTO, WHO, or all other. But we will come across with several organizations while dealing with different topic. Then the International Court of Justice we have to study in details, not other organs. Other organs we have to study in short, but the International Court of Justice have a separate subtopic in module 12, that is topic 4, that International Court of Justice and statute by which International Court of Justice is established. That statute we have to see, that is statute of ICJ. Then historical evolution, what was the prior judicial organ before ICJ that we have to study. Yes, it is part of United Nations. ICJ is a part of United Nations, but again, separate statute was also there to make elaborate provisions pertaining to International Court of Justice. It is organ of United Nations, but to make detailed provisions, one another statute was enacted. Statute means convention, that is Statute on International Court of Justice. That statute gives the other provisions, that kind of jurisdictions, etc. That's what we those point we have to see. So historical evolution of ICJ, we seen already in League of Nations that Permanent Court of International Justice was earlier, and once it dissolved or it succeeded into International Court of Justice. Here we also see the composition of the court, how many judges from how many countries. Yes, you can find several information about this, about their headquarters, where they are situated, etc. So, composition of the court we have to study. Okay, how many judges it consists of and other things. Then types of jurisdictions of the court. Now, you are already aware about the several kinds of jurisdiction exercised by the court. Yes, 9 judges, that we will see what composition is and how they were appointed, etc. duration. But what are the jurisdictions of the court? So jurisdictions, are you aware about? How many kind of, if we took the example of Indian Supreme Court, how many kind of jurisdictions were exercised by the Indian Supreme Court? Comment. Similarly, we have to see what kind of jurisdiction is exercised by ICJ. Jurisdictions exercised by the Supreme Court. Original 24. Not number of high courts. How many high courts are there? That is not the question. How many jurisdictions? What are the different kind of jurisdiction exercised by the Indian Supreme Court? Yes, one is original, Sujata Gugule. Original jurisdiction. When it is to be exercised? One. Territorial, yes, Rutuja. Territorial jurisdiction. Appellate, Ashish. Appellate jurisdiction. Territorial jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction. Another. Court of Session guy. Deepak Shinde. What is meant by court of? The question is how many jurisdictions, what are what kind of different jurisdictions were exercised by the Supreme Court? Pecuniary in case of ordinary original civil jurisdiction in very minimum matters. Advisory, yes, advisory jurisdiction, appellate is over. So appellate, advisory, territorial, original, and as to subject matter, jurisdiction as to subject matter, civil, criminal, etc. So please switch off your microphone. Mic. Yes. So these kind of testamentary, okay, original and appellate. Testamentary jurisdiction म्हणायचं आहे का Zubair? I'm not talking about succession. Testamentary relating to will म्हणायचं आहे का? That is called as probate jurisdiction. If you are, you means to say that jurisdiction in respect of wills, that is exercised by the High Court, not Supreme Court. That is called as probate jurisdiction. Validity of will, etc. Codicil, giving codicil, that is probate jurisdiction, but that is exercised by the High Court. Admiralty, even relating to war crimes, war properties, etc., that is exercised by the High Court. We are talking about the jurisdictions exercised by the Supreme Court. So that's what original jurisdiction is exercised when we were about to finish the discussion on module. That's what I would like to revise what municipal jurisdiction is. So you will be familiar with the concept of jurisdiction itself. Concurrent jurisdiction in case of writ on High Court and Supreme Court. Yes, in writ, in case of writ, Supreme Court exercise original jurisdiction. Other, writ can be filed if there is public interest litigation and violation of fundamental right. Yes. Another way, another subject matter wherein Supreme Court can exercise original jurisdiction. Yes, that is dispute between state and union and state. Supreme Court exercise original jurisdiction. And if jurisdiction is conferred by a statute specifically, then also, even in contempt of court cases, if there is a contempt of court of Supreme Court itself, Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. The recent example you are observing, the case of Prashant Bhushan. Supreme Court being a court of record, then appellate by way of appeal, advisory when President want advice on the legal question, advisory jurisdiction, territorial over whole of India. Similarly, here International Court of Justice exercises certain jurisdictions. Advisory jurisdiction is exercised by ICJ, giving advice on legal question to the state and contentious, the dispute between two persons. However, the major drawback is both the parties must have to be consented to submit their dispute before International Court of Justice. Then only it can exercise jurisdiction. So how consent can be obtained, that we will see later. And what is the binding nature of judgment passed by the ICJ, whether it is doctrine of precedent is applicable or not, that we will see. And last topic, that is legal status of international organization, we have to cover whether international organizations are subject of international law. That we will see there. So with this, we had finished the overall discussion over all the 12 modules from